Good morning, everybody. So I got a private message from somebody that I did block on private message now because I don't really want private messages from people giving me their articles. But I have to now really address this because I haven't talked about modern medicine and Rockefeller medicines from this angle before, because there's so many angles to attack this that we have to understand why things exist. Because if we don't understand why things exist, then how can we change it? Okay? Because we know that not everybody is going to just go and exodus away from something, because we know there's so much need out there in the world. All right, so this person sent me an article about vaccines, and it was done on a blog site, but it made it look really like it was like official and all that. I'm just like, and I have a lot of anti-vax people on my page, and they're trying to send me stuff and trying to, influence me to take back everything that I just said the last couple weeks or last couple months. It's not going to happen. I'll tell you why. Because we understand now about viruses and weak bodies. When you come from the standpoint of jelly juice and viruses and the difference between a strong and a weak body, you'll understand why cancer, disease, and chronic illness exist to begin with. Cancer, disease, and chronic illness would not exist, no matter what exposure you would get, would not exist in a strong body. Regardless, I don't care what religion, I don't care your belief system, I don't care what part of the planet you live on. A very strong body would not hold cancer, disease, and chronic illness. What is cancer? It is a virus on a weak body. And what is no cancer? It is a virus on a strong body. I mean, do we have to now put those two together? This person has cancer, this person has no cancer. So a no cancer person has a strong body, still exposed to the same virus, but a no cancer person has a strong body. They don't have cancer. So would I have to characterize myself as a no cancer person? But the fact that we have one name that has the word cancer describing a person, then there is this perception when you see the word cancer, viruses, you see the word cancer in anything in the medical community that is being used to treat or to give a layer of protection within the vaccines. Or when you see the names of diseases. I mean, would they call me a no lymphoma, no lupus, no diabetic, no eczema psoriasis person? No, I'm just a regular person until my body starts breaking down, and then I exhibit characteristics that have a name for it, such as lupus, fibromyalgia, cancer disease, chronic illness, aging, whatever. And so this has probably been one of the most hardest things to get across, because people don't understand why the inserts have what they say. Why it is that, the FDA and some of biotech doesn't want certain information leaked out because of the way the public is as far as their education around viruses and human body, and people would react in a very emotional and aggressive way because they don't realize, see, a society that makes people pay for education and doesn't go into detail why things exist to begin with in school is a society that is so ignorant that they won't understand that correlation doesn't mean causation. And so then you have only a certain few that understand certain things, and then you have a large few that doesn't understand. And now the ones that don't understand are going to then make these assumptions over the ones that do understand. And that's when you have the conflict. But that's what our society has created when you are making money off of education. When you don't actually teach the right things in school. Why do they give vaccines? Why? And teach it from a very young age. But here's the thing. When you cure death, okay, when you when you actually impact the infant mortality rate in a third world country, okay, when you cure death, when Mother Nature says that this person should not be living, a virus is going to be in the environment regardless. And that virus looks for the weaknesses. It scans the environment. It's almost like a cyborg. It's almost like the Terminator, I guess. And the Terminator, you see through the eye where it scans the environment. It's like a heat-seeking thing, and it looks for the weaknesses. And when it sees like the red, it wants, like, it's trained to kill, right? That's what Terminator is. It's like a virus that is looking for the weak people in the population. And then it starts systematically destroying unless you can reverse it or find a cure. But then that has a chain reaction of trauma events. But either way, that virus goes after the weak people in society. Now, modern medicine has figured a way to manipulate the body to prolong your death process. But the inevitability is that you're going to die because you are not putting the right chemistry in the body. So what are the role of doctors? Well, first, when you go to a doctor's office, okay, and you sign up for a new doctor, you have to fill out a form. That form is your name, if you're children, or if you are an adult, obviously, your name, your address, your phone number, your date of birth, family medical history. You got to check mark every box. I know they'll give you like a list of every predisposition a person can have. Have you ever had this? Do you smoke? Did you have breast cancer? Do you have, lung cancer? I mean, they will name off every single disease that they have recorded since the beginning of time, or since the beginning of biotech, or since the beginning that they could record cancer, disease, and chronic illness. Okay, so I'm adopted, so I have no idea. So I wouldn't be a good example to show what I did. But in other families, okay, when there is a family medical history of breast cancer, of lung disease, of, I don't know, were you ever hospitalized for any reason? Or was your mother or father ever hospitalized for any reason? What do they die from? I mean, there's so many things that these offices ask. And why do they ask this? Why do they ask those questions? Because they want to know what your predisposition is. What's a predisposition? Let's look up the word predisposition, because it has several meanings based upon the context, which are all connected, but it gives people an idea of what it means in this world of jargon, okay? Because now we're dealing with jargon. And predisposition in the medical community has a specific jargon. And that jargon is a liability or a tendency to suffer from a particular condition. That's what predisposition is a liability or a tendency to suffer from a particular condition. Now, you could list out everything that your parents ever suffered, or what you ever suffered, or whatever your grandparents, whatever it is you remember from your family medical history. Doesn't mean that you wouldn't have, you wouldn't sustain some kind of situation or predisposition anytime during your lifetime. You could actually take on predispositions. What does that mean to take on a predisposition? Well, that's kind of weird. Well, it hasn't happened yet as far as exhibiting some characteristic based upon the medical community. But let's say you get into a car accident and you damaged your lungs in some way. Maybe you had a collapsed lung during a car accident. Well, now you're predisposed to potentially getting lung cancer. Well, how the hell does that happen when I never had lung cancer in my family medical history? Because there are viruses out there that do affect the lungs. And if you have weaknesses in your lungs, that means that the potential of getting lung cancer is great based upon the biochemistry of your body. Well, what is predisposition? Predisposition is the tendency in the medical community that you have weaknesses in your family that are getting passed down from mother to child, from father to child. And that is an epigenetic, but that is a negative epigenetic, because it is a weakness that no one has ever corrected. And so now you have a tendency, and you have, what do they call it? To suffer from a particular condition. Now, there is another definition, is holds a particular attitude or act in a particular way. So yeah, you could have it where it's not part of the medical community, or that could be part of the medical community as far as mental illness. But yeah, I mean, if somebody has a trait to be very aggressive, the parents, the same thing. You know, you're passing one type of genetic behavior or manifestation to an offspring. But yeah, I mean, let's say that you're the boss's favorite. Okay, well, you may have a tendency, a predisposition to act like a kiss ass, a brown noser. Okay, I mean, you can use predisposition in so many different ways, but in the medical holistic community, it is meant to understand the type of weaknesses their patient that their clientele has, to figure out how to now manage the rest of your life. Okay, so where do these doctors come from and why do they exist? Oh my God, hold on. Well, when you take us back to like Liberia, okay, because we're so privileged, we forget where we come from, and we keep recycling humans in America or the West every 50 to 100 years. So people forget where they came from. And so they're reading history based upon what they think is somebody else's perception. And then they think that, oh yeah, oh my God, conspiracy stuff. But no, we, back in 93, they created the first smallpox vaccine because smallpox was destroying villages that were never introduced to this new aggressive virus, and many people were dying. So they figured out how to save people that otherwise would have died. Okay? And so when you save somebody, when you cure death, disease comes around. Well, now you have to have somebody to manage the disease. Okay? And so that's where then doctors came in with all of their remedies, and they did a bunch of stuff like leeches and they did experiments, you know, in out there in Europe, and some of it was pretty medieval what they did, but that was how medical science came about, was that if you're going to cure death and violate the laws of Mother Nature, and you're going to prolong the death process, or you could look at it like save a life, one of the two, but the end result's the same. You die. So it's like prolonging death. You're going to get disease. It's inevitable. Okay? So then the doctors are put in there to figure out how to manage your disease throughout a course of a lifetime so you can still have a relatively productive life and have a bustling society and still be able to live. And then when new diseases come into the mix, then you have to then prepare a population to be ready for a new entity. And this is where the whole thing with the vaccines. Now, why is it that there is these lists of, on the inserts, of side effects that potentially a person could have? Well, it's based upon predisposition. But even that, even your predisposition isn't going to be 100% surefire to let you know that you might get those types of things. Well, why would it be on a vaccine insert? Because you're exposed to viruses no matter what. Okay? On a very weak body, you would die. You wouldn't get any of those diseases because you'd be dead. Okay? So when you go to Liberia and they're exposed to like the measles or the enterovirus or any of those lung viruses, like communicable RSV, whatever, respiratory type of stuff. Well, when a baby in the first 6 months, first year, or in utero, if it's not strong enough to handle the aggressive environment like Africa, okay, well, prior to the vaccine campaign, there was a high infant mortality rate, no different than even in the Amish. They have a high infant mortality rate, but that is declining because they are giving now some of the Amish some vaccines to cure SIDS, because there's a high SIDS rate in the Amish community. There's an Amish gene, there's a SIDS gene. And what is it? And they figured out isolate the gene, and it has to do with the imbalances in the fatty acids. Okay. So when you're going in and you're curing death, now you're going to get disease, but that's okay. So why is it in the vaccine inserts? Because some viruses that you're exposed to, no matter what, I don't care who you are, some viruses that you're exposed to, if you have a weakness in a particular area of the body that virus specializes in, because there's a million viruses out there, not all of them are cancerous. But what makes a virus cancerous? weaknesses. Because I can be exposed to a cancer virus, but it wouldn't be cancer on me. It would just be a virus that my body can work with. But why is it a cancer virus on somebody else? Because they have a weakness in that area that virus is trying to help protect and give you some kind of like transition protocol, layer of protection, create antibodies. So, someone wanted to private message me like this article, how the FDA is now admitting that there's cancer viruses, but they're only cancer viruses on weak people. So instead of coming from the standpoint that we got to stop modern medicine to do anything, because if you do that, then do you want to end up like Liberia, where you have a high infant mortality rate? And then guess who gets, blamed? It would be the medical community, because now they have a high infant mortality rate. Well, how the hell did that happen? We had a low infant mortality rate a long time ago, and now we have a high. Now you're going to see like everyone. So they eradicate the vaccine campaign and modern medicine, right? And so all of you mothers that are trying to have babies are going to go and try to bear a baby, and the baby dies, or you get miscarriage. You have so many miscarriages or so many deaths throughout a community, because let me tell you, every season people get the flu, not because of vaccines, because you're already exposed to those viruses, but the body goes through an adaptation stage or an adaptation mechanism, and on a weak body, you are communicable. So whatever weaknesses you have with that virus, and the body is now getting rid of excess data, that then makes you contagious. And so a baby or a weak person who happens to be in the vicinity would then potentially die from the exposure of a person that is sick. So no matter what, you've got to have vaccines and modern medicine in the community, or you're going to see a mass devastation of a pandemic. And that's what they're trying to mitigate, is pandemics, because they've seen observable probability, okay, from all of the data from the 1918 flu to the bubonic plague to all the different things that, even back when, Andrew Jackson and the Trail of Tears and the smallpox blankets. I'm sure you heard about that. But our government is not going to allow, is not going to try to prove, it's not going to prove me right. They're not going to allow society to fall that way and create mass chaos just to be right. The government's not stupid. They don't want mass chaos, because they know ultimately, no matter what, they're screwed. The government, no matter what, knows that they're screwed when it comes to public perception around cancer, disease, and chronic illness. There's no way they can win in any of this, because the reason why is because the population is progressively getting weaker and weaker. So the more you see a population get weaker and weaker and weaker, it's not going to matter what modern medicine does. People are going to suffer cancer, disease, and chronic illness regardless of what happens. They can avoid the vaccines or take the vaccines. If they're relatively strong enough, they will still contract cancer, disease, and chronic illness at some point. Now, some might contract it later because their body is strong enough at that time of exposure, but their lifestyle and the abuse, and then all the remedies they take on through just, benign stuff, is going to then systematically degrade them to where eventually, they're going to be triggering some kind of exotic disease. And then guess what? Who they're going to blame? They're going to blame the medical community. So, the whole point of the vaccines and modern medicine is to put in whatever viruses. Now they want to call it cancer virus. I don't know how you can call it a cancer virus when you don't know if it's going to be cancer on everybody. Some people it's going to be, but some people have a very specific biochemistry and they're already weak, but it's better than dying. Some people will get a polio vaccine that would be great on one person, because you see people that have those weird like circle burn marks. I think that's from the polio vaccine, and they don't have polio. So how did they survive the polio vaccine? People, they gave a dead virus versus a live virus now. Well, I don't know. Maybe the dead virus wasn't strong enough nowadays because the kids are that much weaker. I mean, there's so many reasons why modern medicine does what it does, and it went through all of its tests, but they're still dealing with a population that has so many different biochemistries and backgrounds. and predispositions that it's so hard to gauge how to exactly give people the chance at life without potentially triggering something. But it's better to have a disease than to be dead. And that's the horrible thing. It's like the better of the two evils. But I would rather have life than die, right? I mean, when it comes down to it, it's life or death. So I feel for the medical community, and now I understand. And so the role of doctors is to figure out how to manage all of your weaknesses that it's not really all of your fault. But the medical community shoots himself in the foot by creating remedies and procedures that compound the issues, and then put on the insert to the vaccines that all these different diseases are a potential. And then they create remedies against those diseases. And so it looks like it's a Ponzi scheme. They're never going to ever get rid of that perception until they change their business model, until they actually understand that pain is how the body heals, so they're not always on the hook to be the scapegoat. So when you're curing death with disease, and then you're creating remedies to manage and potentially save a person or potentially kill them, then you're always going to be the scapegoat. And so it's like, and so this is where then the Jilly Juice comes in, is that if you are strong enough to be able to survive reproduction, and if you're strong enough to handle the 11th hour remedy because you were diagnosed, and some of you are too afraid at diagnosis to do the Jilly Juice because you're not ready for the pain sequence, then you can do the Jilly Juice at some point, right after you get yourself stabilized or feel comfortable. And so this is where Bill Gates needs to pick up. But no, he's going to take it to the next level. He's going to take it to where, they're going to do CRISPR gene editing that's going to compound all the issues. This is where medical science and medical holistic goes overboard. Instead of saying, okay, we're going to give you life that otherwise wouldn't have it. That's why you see the infant mortality decline rate. Now they need to then say, okay, now we've given you life. Now here's the Jilly Juice. Let's now reverse all of your issues, strengthen your weaknesses, and stop this cycle of disease in your family, because that's what predisposition is. You've inherited your parents' weaknesses. And then in an environment that's already aggressive, compounds it. And then all the remedies, the therapies, the holistic and the allopathic therapies, the exercise regimes. That's why everything on the Jilly Juice protocol does not follow the holistic sports therapy medical systems business model, because that business model compounds all of your issues. That's why the Jilly Juice says, okay, if you want to heal, you have to freaking relax. No, I have people on my Facebook that are in all the different competitions, MMA. I mean, they're in Taekwondo. They do active relaxation, whatever the hell that means. Okay. And I'm just like, active relax. There's some people that are addicted to moving around all the time. They can't just sit still. They can't just sit still for a day, for a week, for however long, and just heal. They have to be moving around. And when somebody is implementing a very traumatic type of exercise regime or lifestyle to the body, and you're trying to do the Jilly Juice at the same time, it's going to undermine your ability to heal. Because not only do you have to heal from past, present, and future, now you have to heal from the current things that you're doing, which is present, yes, but you could have present issues that happened a while back, but you're still dealing with them, okay? But now that you're doing all these exercises and everything else, you're now creating more trauma that the body has to also heal from. And here's the thing too, when it comes to predisposition, you may not know that you may have a heart condition in your past or in your genetic makeup. You may not know that at all. And so if you're going to be doing arduous exercise and do the Jilly Juice, but you're aging, you're aged, right? and you're doing the jelly juice and you're thinking, okay, that's great, but you haven't really reversed the aging process. So, you know, you still have issues. And then you're playing back and forth with the jelly juice, and you still have the malabsorption rate is still stronger than the absorption rate, and you're doing exercise because you think, oh, I did a bunch of jelly juice. I don't know how much you're taking. You could be taking 1 cup or 2 cups, or who knows, but that still isn't really you're not taking on the reserves. You haven't healed the heart or something, and then a person has a heart attack because it's already there. It's in their genetic makeup, and maybe they live, maybe they die, but that's the dice that they're rolling. But when you're doing exercise, and maybe you're doing jelly juice, but the body is not absorbing as much as you should to fix the weakness, you never know if you might die from a heart attack. So that's why I say, you guys, stop with the exercise when you're on jelly juice if you can. Some of you, that's what you do for a living. I get it. But you roll the dice. Maybe you have a strong heart, maybe you don't. Maybe you have a strong, brain so you don't die from a stroke, maybe you don't. And so, the surefire way to know that if you're healed and sealed is if you really cut down on those activities and find a way to heal and seal and then reintroduce something like that. And that's the whole thing with what I was talking about yesterday as far as exercise, is that those that are in those fields, you're going to have a harder time. Okay. So predisposition doesn't always come out in the doctor's office. You could gain a weakness in your heart just for how would you do that? Hell, I don't know. How would a person have a heart? Well, yeah, it's genetic, and then you could have blunt force trauma. You never know when you get in an accident, because that's what creates then the predispositions. There was accidents and there was trauma that happened to the body, like to the parents' body and the grandparents' body, like years and years and years and years ago, and then that weakness, that epigenetics, gets passed down, and so now you have a predisposition of heart issues, of which then a virus that happens to either upgrade the heart or downgrade based upon a strong or weak body, well, that could potentially then cause a heart attack. But yeah, a person can gain heart conditions throughout their life, not just be predisposed through genetics. Because yeah, you get into an accident, or you're a boxer, or you're like all these sports stars that have kids. Imagine if you did a lot of sports. Some of you, I was an athlete. I played soccer. So I sustained genetic, mutations through my life, which I since fixed. But yeah, when I played soccer, I hyperextended my arm. I got hit in the head, bumped in the head, fell. I twisted my ankle when I was a kid. There was a lot of injuries. So any kind of injury you sustain through sports at school, running, physical education, and then even playing rugby when you're an adult. And some of so these adults play rugby and thinking they're all badass, right? They sustain injuries, and then they want to have children. And then those children inherit those injuries. They inherit those weaknesses because the parents injured so many different parts of their body, and then that gets passed down, and that creates a predisposition. So every single trauma, sports trauma, every single trauma. So when you go into the doctor's office and they ask you what you know about as far as predisposition, people don't understand that even the sports that their parents played is a predisposition. But maybe it didn't come out in the parents that there was a heart issue because it never came up. They still died from something else because they had a predisposition of, let's say, Alzheimer's or something, right? So yeah, when you go in the doctor's office and you don't know that your parents, or you forgot that your dad played football or something, forget that, but you forgot that your dad played rugby at some point in his life in college, and he was getting knocked about in college. Well, that's a predisposition that you gained that you didn't know that you had a predisposition of. And so when you get a vaccine or you get exposed to a virus in the environment, you could be potentially then having a heart issue. And so, yeah, people die from heart attacks all the time, and they didn't have any kind of medical, history or predisposition, they're like, well, how the hell did I get a heart attack, or how the hell did that happen? Well, there could be weaknesses and traumas that happen that you just never really thought about, because everyone is so up on the whole predisposition of like cancer. Oh, is there a cancer in the family? But now you got to look at, what did your parents do? Were they, what do they do for a living? Do they fall off, the ladders a lot? Were they painters? Were they construction people? And so every single trauma to the body then gives a predisposition to that child. And so, so that's why it's so hard to figure out, if you're going to get some of these, diseases from the viruses in your environment or from the vaccines, and why some people get the issues early on from exposure to viruses, and why some people never have an issue because they never had a predisposition. The trauma never affected the parts of their body to the extent to where they would have lupus or fibromyalgia. Okay, I have people in my life that have like lupus, and we don't know their medical history. And so, but for them to have lupus, they had a predisposition. They had weaknesses and traumas to parts of the body that they never knew about. And if they did know about, that's what contributed to lupus. And so every generation that has weaknesses based upon the lifestyle of that parent, and then they procreate, that then compounds the weaknesses. And that's why you see these exotic illnesses, is because we keep procreating on bodies that are traumatized and no one's ever fixing them. And so then you have a new disease, a new thing, a new whatever. And that's, and that's why the medical community gets such a bad rap, because they save you from death, they cure death, you have disease, and then you keep procreating on those diseases plus then new traumas. And then now the doctors are getting a mess that comes into their office. They inherit a mess. And so, yeah, so then you see like these articles about how doctors are so upset or so sorry for feeling responsible for giving disease to their patients, but they're not. The patients already sustained trauma for so many different years. And the viruses are in the environment. They're only cancer on a weak body. And so, but the doctors are the scapegoats. They are the ones that are trying to help your family maintain some semblance of productivity and sanity while you have inherited all these diseases and issues, and you have no idea how to fix them. The doctors don't know how to fix them either. They just know how to manage them. And so we can't demonize the doctors, because they're not taught to, they're not going to be taught because the industry doesn't know how to reverse the aging process. Okay? The industry does not know how to reverse all of your weaknesses. They just know how to manage your weaknesses, but they're not trained to actually, and even the nutritionists. Okay, so even though they're not trained in nutrition, but even look at the nutritional therapies out there. You think they know? No, because they're just as messed up as their clients are. The whole educational system and all of the degrees are predicated on that you're going to die at some point. So how can we mix and match certain things and figure out your imbalances to try to balance you out with food or medicine or prescription drugs or therapies or procedures, and still give you some kind of sanity and still keep you productive in our society? That's what they're there for. So it doesn't even matter if doctors are trained in nutrition, because the end result's still gonna be the same. Nutritionists are still dying like flies, okay? So now we have to now introduce the potential for indefinite life to even attempt to change the way the industry does business, okay? And that starts with all of you, okay? Because, there's no two ways about it. If we don't do this protocol and show and exemplify that we are not going to rapidly age, and we're not going to be so extreme, we're going to understand the role of everything, and we're not, out there just raising a ruckus, and we just keep to ourselves, but give the information, and we allow people to make their own decisions, the tides are going to turn, because people don't want to die. Doctors don't want their patients to die. Biotech doesn't want anybody to die, or they wouldn't exist to begin with. Bill Gates does not want anyone to die, or he wouldn't be going into third world countries like Liberia to help them impact their infant mortality rate to decline, when the overall infant mortality rate in the world has declined. It's because of the UN and of who else? The Peace Corps, the Gates Foundation. But now when it comes to emerging countries that are coming from third world status to first world status, they're going to have the same kind of issues that we have. Potential for autism, potential for cancer. Now you have to have the support services, the educational system, the infrastructure to support the diverse society, because now you have to then figure out how to help people that otherwise wouldn't have been there. But yeah, they have deficiencies and issues, but they still could be a contributing member of society and still lead a relatively good life. So the Gates Foundation, biotech, and doctors know how to bring life in, create life, so to speak, and help you support it, but they haven't figured out how to sustain it. That's where we come in. That's Kevin's important, that's the important message that we have to come across, Kevin, is that society has, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Our society, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and all of that, have given us a foundation to work from. They created life. They helped support life. Now it's up to the Jilly Juicers to make people understand how to then sustain life indefinitely. Though obviously, there are freak things that happen. We can't 100% say, okay, you're going to live forever, because you can't predict the future. However, we now have the chemistry to show that under all the right conditions, indefinite life is a possibility. Okay? And so that's the important message, is to honor those that have paved the way to some extent, but say, hey, okay, I honor you in some way, though here's where the imbalances are. This is where you took it too far. And so that's why I get on the holistic world, because they've tried to reinvent the wheel. So, okay, you had a place for a minute, for a second, to kind of then highlight what's going on. But you're taking it too far, holistic world. Bill Gates, you did a great thing. You helped Liberia, you helped these certain countries that otherwise didn't have the help. But now you're taking it too far. But he's also aging and degrading too. So he's not going to understand how to sustain life, because he doesn't sustain life in his own body. So he wouldn't understand how to do the Jilly Juice, because he's not even exemplifying indefinite life, because he's aging and degrading. But he knows how to create it, and he knows how to support it, and he knows how to create the mechanisms for mass communication. But now this is where we pick up where they left off. Okay? And that's the importance, and that's why we're so right now unpopular right now, because people are still trying to wrap their minds around indefinite life, and they still got to go through their religion, their belief system, and all of that stuff. And when you're trying to penetrate all of that, you're not going to reach everybody. But there are some that will be reached. And those are the people that that we really foster and help with the Jilly Juice protocol, because those are the ones that are going to be helping changing the medical holistic industry for good, so we don't have needless suffering in our society. Now, once we get everybody on board, how do we then manage so many different people? But believe me, not everyone's going to do Jilly Juice protocol. Mother Nature is going to make sure that some people are not going to be, they're going to be too far gone. And so, yes, there's going to be some kind of force out there that is going to be a balancing mechanism. And that's what Bill Gates was saying, that between now and 2028, there's going to be a virus that's going to be so new in the community, and people aren't ready for it because they're too busy partying and thinking that, that they have all this time, but they're not doing anything to help their bodies, really. That's going to come in and decimate those that are weak. No different than the bubonic plague. Not everybody died from the plague. Who died? The elderly, the children, and the immunocompromised, the weak. And it only left the strong. And that's the way Mother Nature is supposed to work. That's pure Darwinism. That's like in Liberia. But they also have chaos and a lack of a centralized system and a government and a good infrastructure to support the life. And that's why the Gates Foundation goes in and tries to help them get some kind of footing and stability. But yeah, you know, so I don't think we're going to have a problem of overpopulation, because Mother Nature is going to put out a balancing force and decimate those that are weak. It's just going to happen. And it's going to suck. I mean, we already see cancer as like the plague. I mean, I think cancer is kind of the modern day plague. No, it's not going to do 30 million in like 6 months. But that's when these viruses like the Ebola virus and some other virus that could potentially decimate a weak population. But not everybody will die. And so when you have people on the J juice, then you won't have as much reproduction. Okay? Because yeah, I mean, right now, I mean, I have no desire to have a baby. Neither does my husband. Okay? So when a person is living indefinitely, they won't have really a reason to procreate, because they keep living. So that's less, you know, entities on the earth consuming. So Mother Nature will have a balancing force that if you are 100% well, you're not going to procreate and reproduce. And then if you're so weak, you're going to be, you know, taken off this earth anyways. And that's how Mother Nature keeps a balance. But it does take a few generations, just like with these drugs that are on the market that get recalled. Some of them are on the market for like just 10 years or 20 years or 12 years. Okay? Before it gets recalled. I think it's like 11 years, I think, that Norplant was on the market. I actually had Norplant. And then it was recalled. They actually had a class action or some kind of whatever suit that I missed that opportunity to get any kind of money. And that was a couple of years ago. So, you know, these drugs that are coming out also have a shelf life. Okay? So you can only mess with Mother Nature before she takes back the balance. So you just look at all the different drugs that come out in the market and when they get recalled. And you can see how long these drugs last in a population before the population goes, oh my God, we're tired of all the side effects and everything else. And then that's when the FDA goes and recalls it. No different than when you see populations, like we have 300 years of, 300 years since the first vaccine and about 6 generations. And you're seeing how weak this last generation is. Mother Nature is taking back her power because somebody came in and messed it up. And so that's where, yeah, Bill Gates and the biotech is taking medicine too far. And this is where then the Jilly Juice is a balancing force. Okay, fine. If you want to go get all your pills, power supplements, and detoxes and whatever, that's on you. But now there's another option. But you have to be strong enough to handle the healing process. That's the caveat. If you want to live, you got to earn it, baby. There is no shortcuts when it comes to Jilly Juice. You got to actually sit and heal. And actually some people are too tempted in our society to go and drink, to go and smoke, to go and do all these things that our society offers. And so they don't stay on the Jilly Juice because the temptation of mainstream society beckons them, and it's stronger than the potential desire to live indefinitely. And so, yeah, I mean, that's already a balancing force out there. So, so I just speak to those that understand me, even if it's just 2 of you or 5 of you, and you guys will be the ones to lead the charge in exemplifying indefinite life. I never say immortality because that has a connotation in the healing chakra worlds that the body and the mind go and the soul lives on, the immortal soul. That has baggage. So we say indefinite life. You can live life indefinitely. But then, yeah, there's no guarantees because you just don't know. I mean, hey, people predict all these crazy catastrophic events. But luckily we have NASA and we have science to see, okay, is there a big asteroid coming in? Oh my God, let's measure the volcano. Do we need to, let's look at the global warming and all this other stuff? Are these models that people are putting out there that, Florida is going to be sunk into the sea and only the panhandle is going to be left? I mean, I don't know. There's so many predictions of what the future is going to hold, but we will see them. And then when they say, okay, there's danger here, move away from here, we're doing this here, just move. Just listen to your government. I mean, obviously, if they're putting you in the trains, putting you in gas chambers, okay, no. But if they say, hey, you need to evacuate, or there's a thing happening and you need to go, don't try to tempt fate and say, oh, I'm going to ride it out. If there's a hurricane coming in your area, don't just sit in your house and be like, because I have no emotional attachment to material things. And I do that for a reason, because material things, if you have an emotional attachment to material things, you won't want to let it go. And if it gets destroyed, it destroys you. So I have no emotional attachment to any material things, only people, but certain people. Okay? So I know what I need to survive, and I know what I need to live, and I know who I need in my life. And that way, you could always be prepared for whatever, and you can leave when you need to and not worry about, oh my God, I have all this stuff. Or when someone wants to take your stuff, it's not going to really hurt you too much because you'll just get it again. If you have insurance on it, make a claim or whatever. Okay? But yeah, some people have so much emotional attachment to stuff that they don't want to leave their house, and they were told to evacuate because of a tornado or of a hurricane, or potentially even an earthquake. I don't know. Can we predict earthquakes to where you can evacuate before it happens? I don't think so. Well, maybe. Okay. And so it becomes a survival of the body, mind, and spirit. And then you're not attached to stuff. But you can still be stable and still be, create roots. But you still don't have attachment to stuff, because everything is replaceable, but you are not. Okay. And so that's why I say put more of the energy in regenerating yourself and building yourself than in putting money in stuff that doesn't give you any life. And yeah, it gives you entertainment for a minute, but when you're putting all your money in some object that doesn't really give you any cell regeneration, then you're taking away your minerals and putting towards something else, and then you're depleting yourself. So yeah, how do you balance out having your hobbies and how you balance out living indefinitely? Well, it's possible, but you got to be able to handle the healing process and divert your attention away from your hobbies so you can then heal, and then down the road go back to your hobbies, and then you'll be more enhanced because your brain's going to be clearer. And then who knows what you might invent that's even better, because your brain's working that much better than it was, prior to you doing the Jelly Juice protocol, because all of your stuff is going to be there no matter what. But will you be there is more the point. That box or that car or that building or whatever it is that your hobbies are going to be there, barring any natural disaster to wash it away. But really, is your body, mind, and spirit going to be there to be able to then enhance that car, that building, that box, that whatever? And that's what I'm saying. Invest in yourself to know how to regenerate yourself, so that way you can then do all the things you want to do without it working against you adversely. That's the whole point of J Juice. And so I got lucky enough to be able to sit at home and just think about this stuff and think about this stuff and do it and report on it and give you guys an idea of what to expect, though you're not going to know everything because you all have your own personal history. But at least you feel comfortable now that it's not going to destroy you and it's not poisonous. And now you just have to put the time aside and rearrange your life to support it, and maybe change up your belief system just a little bit to then give you half a chance to be around. Okay. So anyways, that's my musings of the day at 6 something in the morning. I get up between 3:30. I got up about 3 this morning. I'm up between 3 and 6:30. Usually it's at 4:30 that I actually get up, but I was up early this morning. And that's lately. I mean, couple years ago, I was up at like 8 or 9. And Jason had to go to work really early. I'm like, I don't want to, I don't want to get up and I'll be struggling to get up at 3 to make him coffee or something. And just didn't stop doing that. And then over the last couple, last year, it was like getting up around 7 or 8, 6, 7 or 8. And now it's like, now I got another level of healing to where my body works like clockwork. It's like I poop twice a day. My system is so clear in its communication. I don't know did you guys see that thing that go across? I can't tell if it was like I don't know. Anyways, but my system is so clear in its communication, and it's so effective in processing the food and releasing it. And I'm getting driving benefit, and I'm not holding on to poop. And I feel skinnier. I feel stronger. I could probably go out and play some soccer and compete if I want to, and then come back home and drink a bunch of JJ's to repair from the damage. And I could probably go and work out if I want to and sculpt my body to have a 6-pack, and then come home and drink my JJ's to repair any damage. And then the body is morphed in that way, because remember, you go through an adaptation. When you work out, when you do anything that alters your body from food or activity or environment, the body is altered in some way, and then it goes into a nice, comfortable homeostasis. So I could probably do all of that and be great. Now, do I want to go and work out? Not really. Do I want to go and run? Right now at this point, do I want to go play soccer? Well, it's kind of cold out, and a friend of mine has a kid that one day, I'm gonna get him a soccer ball and I'll go play soccer with him. So yeah, that's in the future that I'm gonna go play some soccer again. Okay, I saw something that went through. I don't know. It was just weird. I'll have to replay this at 50 minutes or something. Thanks, Kevin. But anyways, but yeah. So there's so much, like, your second life can totally be created. But you have to reset your body. You have to heal and seal. You have to reset your body, guys. And I'm hoping that all of you that are watching me will do it and stay with it and be around with me for a while. But if not, I'll support you in whatever it is that you do, and hope that you can handle the death process. Because the death process is not fun. It really isn't. When your body and your mind starts deteriorating, when your mind starts deteriorating before your body does, and your body also is deteriorating, but not like completely, when your mind goes but the body's still here and the spirit's still here, that's a tough thing to watch. Okay. And especially if it's in your family genetic history, that's in your future. When you watch how your parents pass away, that is in your future. And that sucks. So, yeah, they have these new cures on the market, but then you don't know the side effects. Right now, they're saying that they have Alzheimer's cure, they have sickle cell anemia cure, the CRISPR gene editing. Well, those haven't been tested over a long period of time because we haven't been around for a long period of time with these things. So they're all experimental. And then who knows what other issues are going to come about. It could potentially shut somebody down in a couple of years. Yeah, they have no more sickle cell anemia, great. Or they have no more Alzheimer's, great, for like a year. And then who knows, after the 3rd or 5th year, something else happens. Because remember, when you create weaknesses in a body that's already has a predisposition anyways, that's when the viruses then remember, viruses are the balancing forces. And it's true. Viruses, when they see a weakness, they will exploit it. But a virus, if it detects that you're strong, it's not going to destroy you because you're strong. Just like with the mosquitoes. Mosquitoes don't bite people who are pretty much healed and sealed. I think I got 3 bites. Okay, and then those bites actually made me stronger when I got bit by a mosquito. But I used to get eaten alive every summer. Eaten alive. Okay? And I would have bites here, bites there, bites everywhere, right? Well, because that's the mosquito detecting there's weaknesses, and they're like the vectors of these viruses. They work with the viruses. Okay, so viruses will exploit the weaknesses, and they will lift up the strong. Okay, so you might as well strengthen your body, or you're going to see yourself systematically degrade because of the weaknesses, because you'll never be able to live in a bubble away from the viruses. Viruses are data, they're your biochemistry, the hormones, they're everything. And that's why I brought in the whole thing with the RNA and the DNA and the ghosts. Ghosts are your spirit. Ghosts are spirits lacking the RNA and DNA. And that's why in that ABC News link that says that a mother saw her father's silhouette in the sonogram kissing the baby. So yeah, you know, your relatives are floating around you. They're your kindred spirits. Some will actually appear in your dreams. Some will actually appear, like, you know, in your conscious state because of your biochemistry and your ability to tap into the other side, which is a scary thing. Okay. And that's why sometimes I see these little things on my screen. I don't see them in real life. I don't want to see any kind of spirit in real life. But, so yeah, so, you know, you don't have to be recycled back to earth, but, you know, people do get recycled back to earth in another form of energy because they didn't do it right to begin with. You know, life is earned and death is earned. Okay? Life is not an entitlement. You have to earn your life. You have to earn indefinite life. So, all right, I'm going to go do my thing. But I wanted to give you guys an overview of why we have doctors. They're coming into the middle of a mess. Doctors are handling people who are a mess, and then they get scapegoated. Biotech are handling people who are a mess, and they get scapegoated. But at least they gave you the chance to live. When you see preemies that are in the incubators, those are the ones out there in the bush wouldn't survive. They probably wouldn't even come out in an incubator or you know, they would have already been miscarried in the bush. But the fact that we have modern medicine and the maternity ward gives people who wouldn't survive in the bush a chance at life. And then the doctors have to deal with the mess of humanity and their issues, and they try to make it better. Doesn't always work because you have so many imbalanced humans that sometimes the prescriptions and the procedures they recommend, you'll get an adverse reaction. But hey, you know, look what they have to work with. They're not exactly getting a prime specimen here. All of you guys have issues. The doctors have their work cut out for them. I would not want to be a doctor this day and age. I would not want to be a doctor this day and age. Oh, hell no. Because no matter what you do, you're going to get blamed. You do something, you get blamed. You don't do something, you get blamed. Screw being a doctor. I want to be in the Jilly Juice world. Okay? Because you know about your predispositions. You know that it's based upon a strong body or weak body, how the viruses are going to affect you regardless of the vector, regardless if it's in a mosquito or in the environment or through a vaccine. And then some people say, oh my God, they have the mercury and they have aborted fetus cells and they have, what is it? Some kind of embalming fluid or something. And I'm like, they're all minerals. It's all what's in your food supply, in the air, in everything. When somebody makes your food at a restaurant, you have all those minerals that you're exposed to. You can't get away from the periodic tables. You can't get away from bacteria. You can't get away from viruses. So everything's like, oh, well, it crosses the blood-brain barrier. So does alcohol. Do you know that alcohol crosses the blood-brain barrier? But these are all the arguments of the anti-vaxxers. But and I told them, hey, why don't you go live in Liberia? If you don't want any vaccines or any GMO or any government, go to Liberia, where it's the rule of the jungle, kill or be killed, and there's no real centralized justice system, no major infrastructure either. We'll see how long you'll last there. But yeah, you know, the Ohlone Indians, I'm like, how does a society like the Ohlone Indians live somewhere for 10,000 years and they haven't died off? 10,000, that's longer than we've ever been alive as far as America. We're only 300 years old. And the Indians lived for 10,000 years. They had clean water, no vaccines, right? Okay. And so people are like, oh yeah, that's great. They had clean water, no vaccines, and and they survived. But when do they start really dying in massive, like extinction level? When the Spanish came in with the new bacteria and the new viruses, smallpox and other bacteria, and it decimated the weak. So it seems that new entities, it's like gods. That's why I guess that's how they characterize God, as a new entity comes in and now lays down the life and death law. I mean, it's a trip. Maybe those are the Titans, the Anunnaki, right? All the alien stuff that people are talking about. Well, that's kind of like, what these Spanish, and Pocahontas and John Smith and the fire sticks, they had the power of life and death, not only through their guns and their weapons, but through the bacteria. So that's why they call them the white devil. And so now the white devil is saying, okay, we saw the history. Okay, we saw the history of what we did when we came into indigenous villages with all of our bacteria. We're not trying to genocide any child or any village. So we're not allowing these Christian missionaries to go into some remote island in the middle of the Atlantic, prosecute you for genocide if you do that. So we're going to create a vaccine to now give you kind of a simulated new environment of a new entity. So you think of America, 300 million people, and then you have someone from the Amazon that's kind of like, John Smith or the white devil, a Spaniard, coming in and introducing a bacteria that the population isn't used to. So that's when biotech and the CDC get their ass in gear and create some kind of vaccine to give you guys some layer of protection to be able to handle the transition to that new introduction. Okay? So that's the whole point of the vaccine campaign. But trying to tell people who are so in their sickness, who don't know, who forget where they came from, don't know history, didn't pay for the medical education, probably didn't pay attention in school when it talked about, what the Spanish did to the Indians with the diseases, and why now we have the vaccines and all this stuff. And so now you're getting people that are making correlation equals causation, but they don't realize that they were cured death, but they have a disease, yes, but they were cured death. When you cure death, you get a disease. When you cure a disease, you get death. The cures put you on that cycle of death and disease, and reproduction. Death and disease, and reproduction. So all of you chasing the cure, you're just chasing your own mortality. Now it's time to get off the cycle of the cures and the death and the disease, and now finally deal with all the weaknesses if you can handle it. And if you can't, then yeah, you resign yourself to now be part of the system. Then you can't blame the system when they try to prescribe you stuff. You can't blame the system for nothing, because now you know this information. So all of you that know this information can't blame anyone but yourself for where you're at as far as your body, mind, and spirit. And if you do blame anyone but yourself, then you're just exemplifying a society that doesn't take responsibility for anything. And no matter what, you're still going to die anyway. So it doesn't even matter. All right, bye.